Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Beth. I'm a 36-year-old attorney living in the DC area with my husband. And for today's video, I'm going to be reviewing the new Kosas Revealer Skin Improving Foundation trademark Broad Spectrum SPF 25. And it says that it is a medium coverage foundation with a natural dreamy finish. So, I already kind of have an idea of what the thumbnail and title of this video will be. So this isn't actually a first impressions video. This is the second time I'm filming this video because I did do a first impression and full day wear test of this product on Sunday. It's now Wednesday. And I didn't have the best of luck on Sunday, the first day I wore it. In fact, I think in that footage that I have, I said that I was going to be returning it. I did give it a second chance though, just because, you know, there's so many variables and factors that go into how a foundation looks and feels, etc. So I did wear it again on Monday and I liked it a lot better on Monday. So I'll explain kind of why that was and my thoughts about this foundation generally. So I'm not going to do a full day wear test today. It's just about 7:30 as I'm filming it, so I can probably keep this on for about 4 hours and check in at the end of the night, but I will let you know how it wore after about 8 hours based on my experience on Sunday. And I have watched a few other reviews since I filmed my initial video. That's going to be relegated to the, I guess, dustbin of YouTube footage. So I thought I would kind of share some of the things I've taken away from other people who have also reviewed this foundation. So I'm shifting my focus a little bit with this video compared to what I originally filmed. Originally, I kind of filmed your standard, you know, this is the foundation, these are the claims, this is how it feels, it applies, etc. This is the wear test, and so on. For this video though, I want to focus on two main aspects of the foundation. One is the shade range, specifically how well I think it suits my particular skin tone. I think with a lot of foundation ranges, you can either get lucky or not in finding your shade. And although Kosas has released base products before, their concealer is kind of where they got the Revealer name from. This was a very popular product for them. And then they did have these tinted face oils before. So they have put out base products before, but I think this is the first kind of traditional foundation product that they've released. So it's kind of interesting to see which way the shade range goes. I think a lot of people are aware that NARS foundations tend to run a little yellow, and I think Kosas is unfortunately the same, at least from my perspective, not having a yellow undertone. Clinique foundations, from what I recall, kind of lean a little bit more pink. So if you know that, you can kind of adjust your expectations and maybe what shade you choose accordingly. But it can be really frustrating. That's, I think, my number one frustration with buying foundations is just finding one that actually matches my skin tone. So that's one aspect, the shade range. And then secondly, the kind of skincare ingredients that go into this and my thoughts on that. So let's go ahead and talk about the skincare aspect to begin with. So like I said, they call this the Revealer Skin Improving Foundation, and it does have an SPF, like a lot of different complexion products do. It is a mineral sunscreen though, so I'm glad to see that because I can experience some sensitivity to certain chemical sunscreens. I should mention that I am 36 years old, like I mentioned, and I have dry skin. It's generally pretty clear. I'm dealing with some like hormonal type breakouts on my chin at the moment, but generally pretty clear. You can see I have like some natural freckles and redness in my cheeks, that kind of thing. And I'd say as far as like my sensitivity level, so like I mentioned, I do have sensitivities to certain chemical sunscreens. Some don't really bother me, but some do. And I can also be a little bit eczema prone, so my skin isn't so sensitive that any kind of active ingredient will irritate it. It's a little bit more, you know, if I overdo it type thing. So I think like a lot of people, you know, if I kind of damage my skin barrier, that kind of thing, I do develop some eczema from time to time. So anyway, turning back to this foundation and the ingredients in it, so their kind of branding, they say that they are clean makeup for skincare freaks. And it says, this is a skincare powerhouse, safe for sensitive skin, dermatologically tested, clinically tested, allergy tested, non-comedogenic, and non-irritating. It's also silicone free, free of mineral oil, talc, fragrance, parabens, sulfates, and phthalates. And you can reference their website for a full list of things that they don't include. And this is part of the Kosas tinted skincare trademark lineup. So the sunscreen, like I mentioned, is 7.5% zinc oxide. On this side of the box, it has all of the ingredients that are supposed to help you. It says a clean, skin improving, medium coverage foundation, powerhouse treatment, and SPF to reveal your best, most vibrant skin without feeling makeup-y. Your dream skin revealed. It's supposed to look alive, brighter, hydrated, visibly plumped, soothed, and protected. And it has hyaluronic acid, niacinamide, peptides, squalane, provitamin B5, arnica, caffeine, and artemisia flower. So I'll explain, I think, what happened on Sunday. So this does have niacinamide, and I think a lot of people have recently talked about this trend. I mean, it's not like a new trend. For example, I have this Makeup Forever Reboot Foundation, which is, you know, go-to for me. And it says on the bottle here that it brightens, smooths, firms, hydrates, and evens out. And it says on the back, our pros care about your skin. They created Reboot to instantly reverse the 5 effects of fatigue on the skin thanks to an exclusive combination of makeup and skincare. So this idea of makeup and skincare isn't new, but it's certainly, I think, getting a new focus recently, especially with some of these foundation launches. And I watched a video that Mandy Davis, MUA, posted, and I don't think she was talking about this foundation. I think it was a different foundation that she was referencing. But I think she made the point, especially with niacinamide, because I think a lot of people actually do have some sensitivity to it, especially if you overdo it. And niacinamide is also like a very trendy ingredient. Like I just got a sample of this 10% niacinamide night mask from Pharmacy. So that's a brand new product that's been released. These niacinamide dewdrops from Glow Recipe, which are very, I think, viral right now. Obviously that's a niacinamide product. So the problem is that when you have a product that is including some of those, I guess you would consider them active ingredients, you have to tailor your skincare and your skin prep to what's in this foundation, rather than just making sure that your skin is well cared for and hydrated before you go in with makeup. So that's, I think, the major issue with having skincare in makeup, is that, you know, too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. So the first day that I wore this, I just went in with this Glow Recipe product, just, you know, grabbing some kind of hydrating product to put on underneath. And I think instantly after I applied this product, and basically the entire day, my skin just felt kind of like it was burning a little bit, like uncomfortable. So that was a big no-no. So I definitely don't recommend, you know, putting these two together, certainly. And if you already have a lot of niacinamide in your skincare, I think even like some sunscreens have it. Like, it's just in so many products right now that when they start to kind of pile up, you can run into some trouble if you're sensitive to it. Okay, so I'm going to start applying some makeup as I'm talking here. So like I said, I did use these dewdrops. Bad idea. So the second day that I wore it, I just used this Tarte Quench Hydrating Primer. And that, I think, was fine. I didn't experience that same kind of sensitivity or, you know, uncomfortable feeling. So I think this is just kind of a like gel-based kind of hyaluronic acid type primer. I just did my skincare not too long ago, but I still, you know, like to make sure that my skin is hydrated. They do say on their product page on the Kosas website that you don't need a primer with this. I also thought it was interesting because based on like the texture of the concealer and, you know, the claims and everything, as someone who has dry skin, I wasn't too worried about it working well on my skin. Like, there are definitely some products that if they claim to be like long lasting, that kind of thing, I'm a little concerned. But in the FAQs, it specifically says, you know, do I need to wear a primer with it? It says no, it works beautifully without a primer. And to be honest, I consider a product like this to be more like skincare, like hydrating. It's not like a blurring or, you know, gripping primer or anything like that. So I typically go for kind of a more hydrating step anyway. You can just use a moisturizer. So they say it's for all skin types to improve your skin underneath, no matter skin conditions. And they said they went a step further to clinically prove it's non-acnogenic, non-irritating, and safe for sensitive skin. And they also address whether it is good for dry skin. And they say absolutely, it's packed with ingredients that get to work improving the condition of your skin. A few of our star ingredients are squalane, arnica, and provitamin B5 to soothe, calm, and help balance your skin's ideal oil and moisture levels. And like I mentioned, I did watch a few reviews. So while I'm talking, I'm just going to apply the Charlotte Tilbury corrector underneath my eyes. So I did watch a few reviews, and interestingly enough, they are from different parts of the country, different ages, different skin types, skin conditions, all that good stuff. So I think that's one area where I feel like, so foundation reviews, I do have to sometimes remind myself that even though I may not be the first video up, you know, I tried to film a wear test on Sunday, but I want to make sure that whatever I post is a fair reflection of the product. So I decided not to go ahead and upload that. But, you know, with foundation reviews, I think it is good to remember that there are so many variations in skin type, preferences, texture, all that kind of thing. So I think it's worthwhile to hear from a lot of different perspectives to find one that maybe aligns with yours. With eyeshadow and blushes, that kind of thing, it's a little bit less dependent on your skin tone and texture, etc. But with foundation especially, I think it's helpful to have a number of different perspectives. Okay, so I have my corrector on, and now to take out the product. What I was going to say before I interrupted myself is that I watched Patty Alonso's video, and I believe she has dry skin, and I don't think she loved this foundation. I think from what I recall, she was saying how she might prefer it in the summer because, you know, I don't know if her skin was feeling dry or what, but anyway, she's someone with, I think, a dry skin tone. And, you know, there's a difference between dehydrated skin, which can be very common in the winter, and dry skin. And different products kind of treat different conditions. I know generally in the winter, it can just be a bit of a challenge to kind of find a good skincare routine to make sure your skin is in its like optimal condition. So anyway, so I'll link Patty's video. I'll probably talk about her in a minute when I talk about the shades as well. So, you know, frosted glass bottle, yellow cap, just like the concealer, does have a pump. One thing I like about how they label this product is that it does have the expiration date actually on the bottle. This has an expiration of July 2023, and it is now mid-February of 2022. So, you know, you're getting at least a year of shelf life, and it has the expiration date printed on the package as well. So if you did want to buy it in store eventually, I don't think it's in store yet. But if you did want to buy it in store, you could maybe check the box and kind of see how long it gives you. Because this is a purely mineral sunscreen, I'm not sure if they technically have to include an expiration date. I know chemical sunscreen foundations, if they have an SPF claim, generally do. But I think I've seen some foundations with a mineral SPF that don't have it, so I don't really know. And the difference, if you aren't aware, a chemical sunscreen kind of like soaks into your skin and it like breaks down the UV rays as they enter your skin, whereas like a mineral sunscreen is actually like a barrier and it kind of reflects off the sun's rays, from my kind of layman's understanding. And one thing that they did say on their website that I just had to point out, I'm sure if Jen Love reviews this foundation, it will drive her crazy. They say something about blue light protection, and from what I understand, again, from a layman's perspective, the amount of blue light that you get from like your computer screen and your phone and that kind of thing is less than the amount that you get from the sun. So having a broad spectrum SPF is great for protecting you from the sun's radiation. You don't need anything different or special for the blue light from your computer screen, because really you should be worried about the sun, not your computer. So I think now we're going to be discussing more about the shades. So I'll go ahead and swatch this. This is the shade very light cool 120, which is supposed to be very light with pink undertones. There are two shades that have a lower number. So there are two shades that are called very light neutral. Very light neutral 100 is very light with neutral undertones, and very light neutral 110 is very light with neutral peach undertones. So I chose the lightest shade that is called Cool and is supposed to have pink undertones. There are a total of 36 different shades, and I'll show you what they look like on the screen here. So I'll be interested to hear whether you think I picked the best shade possible for me out of what they offer, or if you think a different shade would have been better suited to me. And I'll explain a little bit more about that. So like I said, this Makeup Forever Reboot, this is in the shade R208, is a very good shade match for me. I'll go ahead and swatch it. And this is what I usually try to enter into the Sephora website to see if they have a shade recommendation for me. If that fails, I'll go back to the Clinique Super Balanced makeup in the shade Breeze. This is a fairly old bottle at this point, so I'm not sure how true to color it still is. But anyway, I used to wear that shade a ton, and I was actually matched at a Clinique counter, so I'm fairly confident in that shade match. Sephora and I always like lament or elegize the disappearance of the Sephora and Pantone Color IQ system. I have some videos on my channel where I use that system to help you find your shade in a particular foundation. So to briefly describe what the Color IQ system is, Sephora had a system that they developed with Pantone, and basically the system helped you find your Color IQ number, which was comprised of two different parts. So the first half of it was a number and a letter, and then the second half was another number. So for example, my Color IQ number was 1R03, and basically that meant that Sephora had divided shades into either cool or warm, and the lower that number, the more neutral you were, and the bigger the number, the more kind of on the ends of the spectrum you were, either warm or cool. So the R indicated red, basically, so cool toned, and the other letter they used was Y, so more yellow toned. So my number was 1R, so it's pretty neutral but leaning cool. And then the second half of that number for me was 03, which meant on a scale from about 1 to 15, I was about a 3. So I'll link those videos so you can kind of get more of a sense for them, and I think they're still helpful, especially when you're comparing across foundations or trying to get a sense of, you know, whether a foundation range leans more cool or warm. I think it's helpful because it gives you a more objective idea of what the shade is, especially when a brand just uses like names and there's no numbering system, or they don't really describe the shades with their undertones, that kind of thing. I think it's helpful just to kind of have that understanding. So Sephora got rid of that. I think they ended their partnership with Pantone, so alas, we're just kind of stuck with, you know, saying what is a good match and then whatever Sephora decides to spit out. And I'd say for me especially, like 9 times out of 10, they're just saying, sorry, we don't have a good match for you. So it's not even like they can recommend a close match, you know, they just say like, you're SOL. So if this foundation fails to generate a match, then I will go in with this from Clinique, this Breeze, and I think this is what I put in to get this shade recommendation. So that's one thing you can try. And they also on the Kosas website have recommendations based on what shade of the concealer you use, or I guess the powder, although I think the powders are a little bit more flexible. So I had my own kind of, I guess, odyssey trying to find a good shade with the concealer, and I'll explain more about that in a minute. But anyway, that is the R208 from Makeup Forever, and this is the Kosas. I think it does darken a bit as it sets down. I think Patty Alonso was saying a lot about it, you know, whether oxidized or not. I think it does darken a bit. So there you can kind of see the difference between the two. The Kosas is closest to my pinky and the R208 is closest to my pointer finger. You know, I think there is a difference in undertone there for sure. And it's not like they're supposed to be the same shade, but I don't know if you can tell on my hand as well, like what shade might match me better. But I also wanted to compare the foundation to the face oil. And just a quick word about the scent as well. It doesn't have fragrance, but to me it does have kind of like a light floral scent. I think Not Fit for Print Beauty said that it smelled kind of medicinal to her. And I don't know if she was picking up on like the arnica or something. I don't really get a medicinal scent. To me, it almost smells like kind of almost like a potpourri scent, but it's not fragrance. I think it's just whatever ingredient I'm picking up on has kind of a natural fragrance. Personally, I kind of like it, but if you hate any kind of scent, and again, it's not fragrance, but it's just whatever is naturally occurring. If you hate any kind of scent, you might not like it. I think some people I've seen have said that they don't detect a scent, so maybe it's just kind of how sensitive your nose is. Okay, so quickly, let's show you again. I feel like I'm going to use up half this bottle before I finish. Okay, so that is the foundation. I like the texture and the consistency actually. And then I will swatch it next to the Tinted Face Oil in shade 1, which is what I would use when I wear this product. I did a full face of Kosas about a year ago actually. So if you want to see me wear this product, you can check that video out. And this is a much more liquidy product. So shade 1 actually looks darker on my hand, and the shade 2 is a lot yellower, so that's just gonna run. So you can see how much more liquidy those products are. It's starting to kind of mix together a little bit. You know, and with a sheer product, you can get away with fewer shade options, and you can get away with a shade that doesn't match you as well. This is a medium coverage foundation. So hopefully, as you'll see, I think this foundation is workable, but I think they say that you can use 1 pump for light coverage and 2 pumps for medium coverage, or to build up the coverage. So I think on me, with the shade I have, I think with 2 pumps, I start kind of veering into the Oompa Loompa territory. So I've been trying to pull back on how much product I'm using. They, interestingly enough, also recommend that I think you use your fingers or a brush to apply, and then using a makeup sponge, and they conveniently just released one, for finishing touches, which I thought was kind of an interesting recommendation from them. I think on Monday when I wore it again, I applied it with a sponge. You'll see how I typically like to apply foundation products. But yeah, generally a sponge will give you less coverage. So I should also say that with, you know, these lights and everything, you know, it washes me out a little bit, so, you know, take that for what it's worth. Okay, so let's go ahead and apply this to the face. So I guess I'll try a sponge on one half and a brush on the other, kind of typical beauty YouTuber type approach there. So I'm gonna squeeze out 1 full pump, which is that much. And I like to just kind of work, you know, dotting it around. So I'll just kind of use what I have on my hand, and then if I feel like I missed any kind of areas or whatever, I will go back in. Okay, so just using a Real Techniques Expert face brush, and it's, you know, possible that the products I was using, found my mirror, I was hiding. So using the sponge on the other half. So I think it's possible, I guess, that the Glow Recipe Dewdrops kind of contributed to the way that the product was kind of looking on my face. Okay, so that is what the foundation looks like on my face. So I do have the Revealer Concealer and the Cloud Set, so I'm going to be using their powder. I think on Sunday I only powdered half my face, and I think the one thing I noticed the most, it didn't actually affect the finish too much. I think I actually see maybe more of a difference in finish between the brush side and the sponge side, which is kind kind of odd. Just try and match that up. But I think the side that I didn't powder, like I saw the kind of creasing in my smile lines a little bit more. Like I said, I think on me, it's not an ideal shade match. And I know like I'm wearing a low cut shirt right now and this part of my body hasn't really seen the sun in the last 6 months or whatever. So there's a possibility that, you know, maybe come summer, the shade will be a little bit better for me. I don't typically tan that much. You know, I have freckles and I burn. But I still think, you know, I might get a little bit of color using the Kosas brow gel here on taupe. So that's a possibility. I did just watch a review video from, I think her name is Lindsay, is it Manette, I think? And she got the lightest shade. And I found it really interesting, her explaining her thought process in choosing a shade, because she said that she does have like yellow undertones, maybe even a little bit olive. And I think she said that the lightest shade was a good match for her. I'm not sure what shades she wears in other foundations or anything. So there's a possibility maybe that mixing the lightest shade with this one would be good for me, or maybe just the lightest shade in general would be a better match. I did ask Kosas, and this is kind of getting more into the concealer as I apply it. So Kosas originally had come out with their concealers, and I have the shade 1.5C, which is the lightest cool shade, and this is actually, I think, what is supposed to match up with the foundation. So I'll go ahead and swatch this for you. I also have the concealer in the shade 0.5N, which was an expansion of the original shade range. And Kosas does something that I think is very helpful in that they come out with these like sampler cards, and you can see 0.5N is missing because, you know, I used it to determine whether to purchase this other shade. So I think these retail on the Kosas website for $5, but you do get a credit to use on a future order. So you can kind of play around with some of the different shades, figure out which one you want, and then purchase the full size. I did comment on one of the Instagram posts from Kosas asking if they were going to be launching a card like this for their foundation. And their response was basically like, we don't have those, but you can DM us a selfie and we will recommend a shade for you. So I did that out of curiosity. I think this was sometime on, yeah, this was Monday afternoon. So before I wore it the second time, when I was kind of feeling dejected over the shade match and thinking about returning it. So just out of curiosity, I did message them. And I'll include a picture of what I sent them. You know, it's my no makeup self, etc. And they recommended 170. So you can let me know. And I'll also insert a picture of the model who is showcasing 170 on their website. And, you know, differences in lighting aside, I don't think there's any reasonable way that I would be 170. So talking about Patty Alonso again, I think she got 170. And again, even with lighting issues, that kind of thing, I think it's pretty clear that Patty and I are not the same shade. So anyway, okay, so removing what's left on my hand and swatching these concealers. So again, 1.5C was what they recommended for this one, and I decided to go with this partly because I filmed a video comparing this concealer to the Wet n Wild Incognito, and you know, I did some like face concealing as well, and I thought this shade actually did okay on my face. When I first purchased it, and the reason why I was kind of excited about having these other options was I just felt like it was too dark underneath my eyes. So those are the differences between 1.5C closest to my pointer finger and 0.5N closest to my pinky, which is quite yellow in comparison. And to be honest, having a slight yellow undertone with a concealer under the eyes is not the end of the world. So I just swatched the foundation in the middle there, and it does look lighter than the concealer, the 1.5C anyway. I think maybe you can see, it does look like it's kind of darkening up though. But yeah, having a concealer with a slight yellow undertone is not the end of the world because it can kind of help to correct some, you know, blueness and stuff underneath the eyes. So I'm gonna go ahead and use 1.5C just because I feel like it just matches the tone of the Kosas foundation a little bit more. And with concealing blemishes, I try to avoid putting the applicator directly on blemishes. So I'll just put a little bit on the back of my hand and then use my finger to just kind of tap over anything that maybe I want to conceal. So I think you could tell based on what was poking through that this is not a full coverage foundation. Let me know what you guys think of this shade so far. After I did apply it on Sunday, I did go in and ask my husband what he thought, and he said that it looked like I had an orange line. And I do think that was kind of super obvious with some of the like check-in footage I have. So that is the forehead. I haven't touched up with powder or anything like that. And that is the primed and set side. That is the unset side. And getting a really good look at the shade difference there. Holy cow. Okay, so I did briefly wear a mask to check the male, so I think it did wear off in some places. And I also had my glasses on for a little bit, so it kind of wore off around my nose. Thumbnails, it's always kind of tricky to like not be too, you know, cheeky, to kind of make sure that it's an accurate reflection of your video. And I don't want to like necessarily put the brand on blast or anything. I did just review the new formulation of the, what are they called? The gel eye colors, which when I didn't like this foundation, the gel colors are like $15, so I was kind of like, yeah, whatever. If it doesn't work out for me, not the end of the world. But with a $42 foundation, I was a little bit more inclined to return that, especially when, you know, I only have so much drawer space and I don't want to necessarily hold on to something that I thought was both irritating my skin and making it orange, which is not really my cup of tea. So this is the Kosas Cloud Set. I will say that I was a little surprised by the end of the night when I did a full day. It didn't look as like shiny or oily as I sometimes look at the end of the day. And I do have dry skin, but for whatever reason, like wearing makeup, sometimes it looks oily. I guess to give you some idea, like sometimes I feel during the day, and I have taken to showering at night recently. If I wash my face at night, sometimes the next day before I shower, my skin starts feeling dry, you know what I mean? So I want to wash my face just so I can like reapply moisturizers. That's kind of my, you know, skin type, I guess. And, you know, we do have a humidifier and all that. So, okay, so I am going in with this KVD contour, and I take this under the neck as well. So I think this kind of helps blend the shade a little bit. You know, I do try to blend it down my neck, and hopefully you can get a good look at the shade there. You know, makeup is more of an art than a science sometimes, even though I like things that kind of eliminate some of the guesswork. I think I do recognize that, you know, if you get too light of a foundation, it can make your skin look dry or just ashy or whatever, so it doesn't really kind of suit it. But, you know, if I had to err on one side over another, you know, with a lighter shade, you can bronze up and, you know, you can kind of keep, you know, the center of your face looking like it matches your neck or whatever, and then just kind of bronze up the edges maybe. But it's a little hard to kind of correct in the opposite direction, at least I think so. Okay, so taking this under cheekbones, and I'm using the BK 101 brush to blend that. So I think, you know, having a little bit of contour under the neck helps. and using a little bit less product I think helps, and maybe in the summer it'll just be a good shade match generally. I'm using the Fenty Matchstick in Amber. It's just a little bit more controlled for a nose contour. Okay, so there was one other thing that I wanted to bring up that I had talked about in my initial video, but I forgot to do so here. And that is looking at the pictures of the models on the Kosas website. I wanted to draw your attention to the model using the shade that I have, which is 120. It looks like when you compare the before and afters that they did bring the foundation down her neck. And specifically comparing that to the two lighter shades, to me it doesn't look like the shade of their neck changed at all, so I'm not sure that they did bring it down their necks for those two models. So, you know, putting my little tinfoil hat on, you know, I would just speculate that maybe the shade that they formulated for this particular skin tone, which in the before shot, it looks pretty similar to mine, I think. Maybe they didn't formulate the shade well enough for that skin tone, and so they had to bring it down the neck for it to be a good match. I could be totally off base, but I just wanted to draw your attention to that difference. So, you know, finish-wise, I think it's really pretty. And aside from the burning feeling I experienced on the first day, on the second day, I felt like it was pretty comfortable. I didn't wear it for a full 8 hours. But if a makeup product physically is like uncomfortable, that is definitely kind of like, you know, a no-no in my book. So I'm going to take the Kosas Cloud Set again. This is a very, I wouldn't even call it mattifying. Like, it's a very light powder. So if you do have dry skin, you know, it might be one worth looking into. And I'm just kind of, you know, lightly going over the face. I guess going back to the long wear thing, on their website, they say it's long wearing for 8 hours. So, you know, I wouldn't expect anything too crazy from this product. I also briefly wore a mask that first night, so and I was just going out for like 10 minutes to check the mail, so just to show you a little bit, hopefully you can see, you know, I did get some transfer on the mask. I feel like it did especially break up a little bit on my chin. I guess I'll go ahead and apply the bronzer from Kosas. This isn't my favorite bronzer, but it's, you know, it's a decent one. Has a little bit more of a sheen to it. And this is the Rephr number 22. So I don't think I'm gonna like finish my makeup on camera. I think you kind of get the idea. The first night I also wore the Kosas mascara that they had reformulated. I did like a comparison between the new formulation and the original, but I don't think I'm gonna wear that again because it was flaking on me, and I think that's mostly just due to the age of the product at this point. So not going to be wearing that again. I also have the Kosas Color and Light pressed powder in Contra Chroma, which is kind of their like blush and highlighter duos. Just put some of that on the cheek. This is a Rephr number 5 brush. So, you know, when I add some color into the face, you know, I think it starts to work a little bit using my Anastasia A23 and the highlighter shade. Pretty subtle highlighter. And then finally, I'll just throw on some of the Kosas lip oil in the shade Dip. Okay, so I'll probably do my eyes off camera just in the interest of time. But yeah, I think those are basically my thoughts on this product in a nutshell. 1, don't combine it with other skincare actives, which may be a pro or con depending on how you like to prep for makeup and do your skincare. And 2, I think it may be a little bit difficult to find a good shade match if you are fair skinned with a cool undertone. So again, you can let me know what you think. Take a look at the shade range. It will be, I think, easier once Kosas hopefully is in store at Sephora, and hopefully they will eventually have these type of sampler cards. So yeah, so I think that's all I need to say here. I hope you guys enjoyed this and found it helpful. Please do subscribe if you did. I hope you guys are all doing well and staying safe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.